music to a more manageable level. I think that's good. Alright, for whatever reason, I think it's because Streamlabs updated, it for whatever reason deactivated the camera. I had the camera source attached to my scene. It was in there, but for whatever reason it's deactivated. Managed to figure it out though. We sorted it. So happy times can be had by all, and we can get on with our evening. Let me have a sip of my coffee while I cease the heart attack I was having. I was getting very nervous there for a minute, but we won. Alrighty, yes, huzzah. Okay, so tonight we are going to be doing a binary of Clan Novacat Alpha Galaxy mechs. Half this binary is going to be a star from the Alpha Strike box set. The other star is a Clan Striker star. Now, small point to make here, just from a canonicity standpoint. Alpha Galaxy in pretty much every clan is a frontline clan, meaning it gets access, essentially unlimited access to Omni-Mech tech, or Omni-Tech I should say, meaning they use essentially only Omni-Mechs, Omni-Fighters, and Elementals. So the Clan Striker Star is essentially, I'd have to double check, but I believe every single mech in the Clan Striker Star is a Clan Battle Mech, not a Clan Omni-Mech. So technically not canonically correct. However, during the Jihad, when Clan Novacat was essentially on the run and being snuffed out at every turn, before they, ended up just becoming the Spirit Cats in the end during the Republic era. I wager that they probably would have been down to Clan Battle Mechs, second line resupplies for even their frontline galaxies. So we'll call this a Jihad era force, just to keep the lore masters happy. Anywho, we'll hop over to the painting desk. I've got the miniatures prepped. They're already primed, ready to go. We will do a bit of airbrush work. We're going to build up some of the volume of the gray, very, very dark gray. So essentially the scheme is going to be the torso will be Starfield, blue Starfields, and then the arms and legs will be just like dark black essentially, but we're going to do a little bit of highlighting and shading, so we're going to use very, very dark gray to highlight them. I do have a very annoying lisp right now, and it's because I have a couple elastics that are in some very inconvenient spots in my mouth. I have braces at the moment, so dealing with that. It's going to sound great. It's going to sound like a greasy 16-year-old giving you this stream banter the whole time, so let's get to it. Okay, I believe y'all can hear me. I just bumped my camera so it shook. That was not an earthquake, I can assure you. Just gonna add a projector to my my monitor on my painting desk so I can actually see what is in focus and what's not. Bear with me here. I had to reset this all up in a hurry. Here we go. Okay, jazz hands. All right, as you can see, I have my wet palette over here. Not really going to be using it initially. Just have a piece of acrylic palette paper. It's just basically thick paper. I don't like using it on my wet palette. I like using actual parchment paper, so I'm not going to be using this today. This is just to check spray pattern and all that good stuff. patient here. Sorry, just 1 second. Slightly on my camera. That way things aren't so washed out. So we got these 5. We've also got these 5. Oops. It's got a Hellhound or a Conjurer. Got a Vapor Eagle or a Goshawk. This is Incubus or Vixen. Piranha. And a Horned Owl or Peregrine. Then a Warhawk or a Masakari. Timberwolf / Mad Cat. This is just the Prime version. Same with this one. Actually, I don't know if this is the Prime version. I don't think this is the Prime version because I'm pretty sure that I'd have to double check. I think the Prime has missile launchers. Could be wrong. I might be thinking of the Direwolf. I don't know. Pouncer, aka Puma, Nova, or the Blackhawk, depending on your preferred vernacular, and then the Fire Moth or the Dasher. So these are the 10 mechs we're doing. I'm not going to be using my spray booth with my airbrush just for kind of these bits because we're not going to be spraying with a huge volume of paint, and I don't want the airbrush spray booth to be super noisy and annoying. I have my NVIDIA broadcast working overtime already when it comes to cutting out the sound from my airbrush compressor. I don't want to have to deal with the spray booth as well. I'm just giving my paint a shake. This is Black Gray from Vallejo. This is what we are going to highlight this with. It's like a very, very dark charcoal gray. I'm going to go ahead and grab just a bit of thinner and glow improver. Just double checking a couple audio levels. I'm going to go ahead and grab my glove, throw this on. A little bit of airbrush, glow improver. I'm going to start with that right in the bottom. Put a decent amount in there. A little bit of thinner. Perfect here. I'm not going to start with too much paint. Because again, this is essentially supposed to be like blue star fields over a black paint job. We do want to highlight these, but we don't want them to look gray. We want them to still have that black look. Sorry, part of my head. I just need to be able to see inside this guy here. I'm just gonna mix my paint inside here because I'm lazy and that's what I like to do. I'm gonna go ahead and mix it like that. So this is this is thin, but this isn't like crazy thin. This is like a bit thinner than base coat thin. Go ahead and give my mixing brush a good rinse. Just gonna give a little bit of backflow to give it a little bit of extra mixing, and then check my spray pattern. I could thin this just a little bit. And just a little bit more thinner. Added like 4 or 5 drops ish. I just don't want speckling. Now, a lot of people, and they're right to say this, a lot of people argue that you should mix your paints in another pot and then go ahead and pour it into your airbrush. That is entirely true, but I'm too lazy to do so. Okay. Getting pretty good faded lines with no like major speckling. That's exactly what I want. So having a piece of paper like this is always handy, just to check your spray pattern. That's good enough. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and move this out of the way. I'm gonna grab my painting handle and zoom this back out just slightly. I'm gonna go ahead and start just kind of on that front edge. Zoom this in slightly. Start kind of on that front edge. The top of the torso, and then I'll hit kind of the back edges. Airbrush compressor is going right now. Hopefully should be relatively quiet. I'm going to go ahead and hit the tops of the arms, kind of the shoulders, top down. With this charcoal, we're really focusing on top down highlighting, zenithal highlighting essentially. But we're going to be pretty selective with where we apply this. We don't want to overdo this gray to where the entire paint job just looks like charcoal gray. So I'm just hitting kind of the bottom halves of the fronts of the shins and the tops of the feet. Fairly subtle right now. I've hit the tops of the fronts of the arms. So as you can see, you can kind of see that gray, but as you move more towards the front view, it just looks like black for the most part. I'm going to kind of hit a little bit of these areas on the sides of the arms as well as down on the lower legs. I don't need to be super accurate here. These are, I'm painting these to like a really nice tabletop standard, so they don't need to be super neat and tidy. I'm gonna hit kind of the front slant of the face on this thing, like that downward slant. A little bit more on the top of that shin, just because it would probably see a decent amount of sunlight. And the same thing, I'm going to do the sides at the back of the leg and the elbow. And then maybe just a little bit down on the lower side of the torso. There, and that's pretty much good. That's about all we need to do on this guy. We're essentially going to repeat the process that we just did on all of these. So just very gentle highlighting. Once we finish this step, we're going to go in with a quick dry brush and hit these with a lighter tone of gray, just to get all those edges, some cheap edge highlights, and then we're going to move on to building up the blue star fields. Go to the Timberwolf now. I kind of like to go from top down. It's my preferred process. It's a little bit flying out of there for a second. I'm going to take my headphones off for a minute. I just want to make sure. I have my daughter sleeping in the next room at the moment, so the brush compressor is not super loud, but also not quiet either. I want to make sure I don't wake it up. Now, you may or may not notice here, there's a couple of areas on this Timberwolf that could be a bit nicer. You notice up here on the missile pod, there's kind of a couple messy areas on the sculpt. This Timberwolf had a couple pretty nasty mold slips on a few of these areas, and I didn't really care to go ahead and resculpt a bunch of this. So there's a few areas on the arm weapon pods as well as on the missile pods that aren't so clean. I just kind of went for the 90% solution. I'm not putting most of these up on the CamelSpec site, so if any, I just want these to look good on a tabletop. Yeah, 90% solution. I'm gonna kind of hit the top fronts of the weapon pods. Go ahead and mix this paint a little bit more in my airbrush. Bit of a clog. Again, I'm just kind of finding all these areas that, like, top down, that see a little bit of light. Very top of the center torso in there. Kind of that bubble canopy and the area just above and behind it. And these little areas that have flat surfaces facing up. And then same thing that we did on the other, like the Warhawk, kind of this shin area. Trying to think about how light works, dude. You know what I mean? And I'll kind of hit these lower elbow areas as well, just for a bit of contrast, and then in kind of these areas up right here. A little bit of coffee staining there, that looked very nice. Kind of spider webbing a little bit. Just had a little bit too much paint come out at once. Elbow again. That's good. And this guy's good, essentially. Boom. Put that down there. Move on to the next one. Airbrush definitely makes this quick and easy. Just picking a handful of spots to really build up color from the top. Build too much color from the side. I do hit these little spot highlights on the sides. Very, very gentle to just hit a little bit. And hitting those little side pieces on either side of the canopy, kind of from above, because they have those flat surfaces facing up. Again, kind of that lower elbow area, in the back of the knee on these chicken legs. Kind of hit that back center torso panel as well, and that guy's done. Moving through them quickly. We're not going to stay focusing on these guys too long. We'll hit that bubble canopy first, just because that's asking for a highlight. And kind of that lower area there. Then I'm going to kind of angle this slightly using the physical shape of the miniature to kind of mask a little bit. Hit the forward half of the top of the center torso there. Let's kind of see what I did there. I'll hit the bottom back side there. I'll hit these little side shoulder areas, like so, and then the front top of the arms. This was another mech that had some pretty bad mold slips on a couple areas, so there's a few areas on this miniature that aren't cleaned up as nicely as they could have been. But again, I couldn't really be bothered to, spend hours prepping these for paint. So. Not to say that I don't do it for other miniatures, but for these ones, I just didn't feel like it. Especially because I have quite a few of them that I'm doing all at once, and I'm just kind of working through them. They're just going to go into the boxes, so I just want to finish them and get them sealed and start playing campaigns with them. kind of hitting most of these top surfaces just because there's a lot of flat surfaces on the top of that fire moth. Kind of the back of the top of the shins. Just kind of angling down here. Kind of hit the top sides of the hips. That's about it on this guy. Beauty with this is we won't need to do any washes or anything once we add kind of that dry brush. Like the darkest recess is already black, so no sense in adding any washes. Realized that my chat wasn't sitting up on the screen, so I fixed that. I'm using a 0.7 on 25 psi. I'm using a 0.3. It's what came with the. This is an Iwata Eclipse. Came with a 0.3 millimeter needle, and I use it on about like 23, 24 psi. When it comes to even coat, like honestly, it comes down to just paint consistency and like the distance from the miniature that you're spraying. That, at least in my experience, I just add or don't add flow improver and thinner as needed. Once you get your paint, like once you get your paint to a little bit thinner than like base coat consistency, from there it's just a matter of adding flow improver. So don't add thinner beyond a little bit thinner than base coat consistency. Everything beyond that, add flow improver, unless you're doing something like a glaze. But if you're layering, do that consistency. Again, in my experience. I'm just kind of like blowing out any clogs, or like some of this is just a bit of clogs that have formed, but it's also trigger control. There we go. Tracing that line. Trigger control and paint consistency. Lots of round surfaces on the horned owl. Gonna really lean into some of those. Create some nice highlights. Kind of hitting all those round surfaces from directly above. Think about if you had like a big shiny beach ball out on a beach in the summer, where most of that light's going to be concentrated. You know, it's kind of self-explanatory. Okay. Horned owl down. Move on to the piranha. There we go. Piranha was quick and easy. A little bit more on that back leg just because it's a little bit more exposed. What's going on, Warwolf? Happy to see you back here, brother.
kind of moving through the rest of these as quickly as I can here because I don't want to linger too long. Just highlighting black. I think you folks get the point. But I really do move through miniatures this quickly sometimes. Like I just, when it comes to airbrushing, I kind of just rifle through it as fast as I can. That way I don't overthink things too much. This is the last one. After this, we'll do a bit of a dry brush. There. That's good to go. Got the compressor running right now. I'm going to go ahead and clean out my airbrush. Missed if you mentioned, yeah, the scheme. Yeah, it's NovaCat Alpha Galaxy. I'll go ahead and move these out of the way so I don't accidentally spray them while I'm cleaning. For you folks, just how I quickly clean my airbrush. Zoom that out. I usually keep this Tupperware container. It's just kind of my little waste receptacle for wastewater. Not much paint left in here, so I'm not going to bother draining it back into my paint bottle. But if I did have a fair amount of paint in here, I would pop the cap on my paint bottle and pour it right back in. Okay. I like using a spray bottle. This is just water. It's not actually Windex, just water. I do like using a spray bottle just because it has some good pressure and a tight stream. I'll throw some water in there and then I'll plug this and then press down for airflow and then pull the trigger back, and it creates a backflow that creates all those bubbles. Helps to agitate. A lot cleaner now, but not perfect. Quite a bit better than it was. I'm just going to go ahead and spray that through into the pot. Feels like there's a bit of a clog in there. So I'm just going to quickly clean this needle to make sure that we don't have any clogs going forwards. Once we start on the stars, this is actually fairly clean. So you'll notice I kind of pushed everything out the front. And that's because I don't want to pull the needle back into the airbrush, because what you end up doing if you have a bunch of paint, you pull the paint back through all the innards of the brush. So always try to push everything out the front if you can. On the back end, I'll kind of pull down towards the back, but once I grab here, I'll hold the back of the needle and then pull everything out toward the end. That way I'm not at risk of like jabbing myself and potentially bending the tip of the needle. This nozzle and the little end nozzle on here actually tend to mate perfectly, so I'll just use this to blow water through the nozzle at high pressure. And that's usually all I need to do in order to clean this. I do have a scraping tool, but I don't actually need to use it that frequently with this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together quickly. This is nice and clean. And that, like, you know, if you ever deal with clogs or you're just cleaning up for the end of the evening or end of your session, this was like a 3-minute thing. And this will save you a whole lot of ass pain, like if you're using varnish or something like that and you go to use this later on, this will save you a bunch of ass pain. So definitely just take the time, clean your airbrush properly, If you take care of your kit takes care of you. It's a good old Army saying. I'm gonna go ahead and get some of this clutter out of the way. Don't need the airbrush at the moment, so I'm just gonna push this off to the side for the time being. Well, as this coffee back here. Have a sip of that. Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this off, because I don't really need my hand in the glove at the moment. Let my hand breathe. Speaking of Army shit, I watched for the first time yesterday Warfare. Hadn't seen it yet. It's the Navy SEAL movie in Ramadi, 2006. If you're a fan of Jocko Willink, you probably know all about that shit. Yeah, definitely. I thought it was good. Definitely slow, much different than a lot of other war movies I've seen. Just with the pacing and the overall feel of the theme, I felt. But yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't. I thought it was interesting, but I definitely don't think it would be in like even my top 10 best war movies. Quite a few gems to compete with there. Brush out of the way. Alrighty. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some somber gray. This is a very heavy blue gray. Very dark. As you can see, I have a fresh wet palette here. My wet palette sponge has all kinds of colors on it. That is not mold. It's just different colors of paint that have bled through and ended up on my palette over the years. Big glob of water. I'm just going to wipe it off. I just have this old gym membership card that I use to kind of smooth out my palette paper. And this is just Paper Chef unbleached parchment paper. Hydration break. Okay. I'm gonna bring this down here just because I'm actually gonna be using this quite a bit just for the dry brushing. Grab this. It's a decent little makeup brush. Utilize this for the dry brushing. We're going to focus a lot more so on the arms and legs. We don't really need to worry too much about the fronts of the torsos. We'll do the back torsos a little bit, but we're going to be doing our own kind of specific highlighting with blues on the center torso and the head, essentially. So don't worry about hitting those areas too much. Doing a classic dry brush maneuver here. Getting the excess off onto the paper towel. I'll test a little bit on the base just to see how it's coming off on a textured surface. Just gonna get a little bit more off there. Thanks to a reminder, my dumbass doesn't hydrate enough. Yeah, nobody does. All right, so I've got little magnets holding this guy on here. I'm just gonna be very gentle in my application. I'm going to hit some of these edges on the torso, but not a lot. Again, I'm going to focus on those arms and the legs. Focus going like top down as well as like front to back. It's kind of always wipe front to back. So a little double entendre there. Little hidden meaning if you haven't figured that one out. Again, kind of going top down then front to back. don't need to be perfect. I'm just trying to make sure I hit all these little areas on the shins. Come in behind there. This guy's pretty much good to go. Don't gotta get too crazy with this. Just enough to give some basic edge highlighting. 1 down, 9 to go. Still got more than enough on the brush to hit this guy. If you start noticing a bit of a chalky look, get a little bit of moisture into your brush. I know, dry brush, you would think, well, it's supposed to be dry. Well, it's not supposed to be completely dry. I usually tap this on my wet palette sponge, tap it off on a dry paper towel to suck a little bit of the excess moisture out of the brush, and then I'll load up the paint and then start offloading onto my paper towel or texture palette when I do have a texture palette, which I don't right now. Gotta make one. I'll just hit the torso so it looks even to me. Probably it would just grind my gears a little bit if everything looked super uneven. That's probably good to go. A little bit more on the shoulder here, I guess, actually. Didn't really get much on that. Cool. 2 down, basically. Go to the fire mop. I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of moisture to my brush. As you can see, this is just from the moisture. This is just getting some more paint flowing off the bristles, preventing the paint from drying on this brush as well. I'll go ahead and get a little bit more paint, and then we will repeat the process. And I'll test on the base just to see how it's coming off. A little bit streaky. Get just a little bit more paint versus moisture on the brush. Sometimes it's just a matter of balancing the paint versus moisture. This is probably good now. Maybe. Might have overloaded my brush with just a little bit too much moisture. And a little bit more into the palette. I do see what looks like a hard chunk of paint actually on my palette. Go ahead and see if I can get that off. There we go. And be very, very light-handed with this. Very gently trying to hit these edges and not create any smear lines. Right there, I just kind of wiped it off with my finger. Again, just focus more so on the arms and the legs. Don't worry too much about the torso. Another one down. I'm going to go ahead and hit this Warhawk. This thing has some nice hard panel lines. Dragon's Fury will rise again. Played a little bit of Dragon's Fury back in the Clicks days. So I was more so a Banson's Raiders guy, but I definitely played a little bit of Dragon's Fury, some Steel Wolves. Very, very light touch when you're doing this. Less is more. It's really easy to overdo dry brushing on black and have everything look gray. So that's what I'm trying to be very careful of here. I don't want this to turn into a charcoal gray miniature. And there's a very fine line that if you cross it, you will end up with a charcoal gray miniature and not black. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit modest with this one. A little bit up there, a little bit back there, a little bit more on the feet, and I think that's it. Okay, we'll call that it for the Warhawk. Put that down. Got the Timberwolf. Got a couple Clicks fans here, Spirit Cats. Yeah, I played a bit of Spirit Cats as well. I had like a couple Drummond miniatures. Like, I can't remember. Trisha Drummond, I think, was one of them. Any of these areas that if you kind of like smudge or get a little bit of streakiness from this dry brush, don't worry about it. You can come back in later and we'll do some minor battle damage and weathering. And that'll kind of, any of these little scratchy bits will actually kind of play into that. So not to fret. Again, this miniature has a few areas that could be a little bit cleaner, but I did not feel like resculpting several areas on this thing. So this was one of the worst Timberwolf miniatures I've ever pulled from a Catalyst Game Labs pack. So generally speaking, I don't really have too many issues with their Timberwolf miniatures, but this one was pretty awful, along with the Black Hawk and the Pouncer. Warhawk was good to go, and the Fire Moth were also good. Fire Moth was also good to go. Very, very little cleanup to do on both of those, thankfully. Just a tiny bit of moisture. Yeah, I got the right amount of moisture this time. One way you can check it too, if you rub the brush on your hand, you'll see a small shine of moisture on your hand. It's hard to see in the camera, but that little shine of moisture should disappear within a few seconds when you rub it on your hand. And that kind of will tell you that you have the right amount of moisture in your brush. We're about good there. I'm gonna go ahead and load a bit of paint. Offload here. CGL does a Jupiter Mini. The Aaron Johnston Unique is what got me into tabletop. I've been using the Army Painter paints, but is there a better suggestion? I use a ton of Army Painter paints still. I don't really have an issue with a lot of their paints. I know they're not as vibrant as some other brands, but like Vallejo is pretty good to go. Though apparently they treat their employees like garbage, so there's been a shortage of Vallejo products because their employees have been on strike. So, but Scale 75 is pretty good paints. They're one of the few brands that actually lists the pigments they use on their paint bottles, which is kind of cool, you know, if you're a nerd. Yeah, AK Interactive has some pretty good paints too. Citadel, I mean, you know, there's hit and miss paints with any paint brand. So, you know, definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, I'm trying to ride that fine line of not doing too much here. I think we're about there. Can always add more later. Pro Acryl is really good as well. Yeah, I do enjoy Pro Acryl. Their base paint set's pretty good to go. It kind of gets you everything you really need, aside from metallics, I believe. I use their metallics very frequently, but I also use a mix of Army Painter and Citadel metallics too. So it just really depends on what I'm painting. But I really do enjoy Pro Acryl's paints. They're very smooth out of the bottle, and they don't require a lot of thinning to do base coat work. Like I find most of their paints across the line are very consistently, like their consistency is very consistent. Consistencyception. Like the red has the same consistency as the yellow, has the same consistency as the blue, has the same consistency as the green, if that makes sense. Whereas I find a lot of other paint brands, you'll find quite a bit of difference between different colors and their consistencies. I might have overdone the dry brushing a little bit too much on this guy. It's hard to tell because the color's a little bit satiny, so it's reflecting a little bit more light than it would otherwise, but I think that's fine. Another brand I really enjoy is Formula P3. They just did a Kickstarter recently because they're kind of restarting their paint line. If they make it to market, I'll definitely pick up one of their sets because they use liquid pigments, so all their paints are super smooth. And I find all their paints that I do use very vibrant, very punchy. Punchy is not the right word. Like, I don't even know if vibrant's the right word. Very saturated. That's the word. Very saturated. Even though like they're desaturated colors, like they cover really, really easily. And once you cover, like that color stands out well, if that makes sense. Yeah, I have a few of the colors that I still have had for years. I've been trying to be very frugal with the paints, but Arcane Blue and Bloodstone. Bloodstone's like a nice ruddy brown. It's this one right here. And then Arcane Blue. I haven't used the Arcane Blue in a little bit. Stuck in its little slot here. There we go. Needs to be mixed up, but very, very bright. And then Temple Guard Blue, which is also another bright cyan blue. This one's from Citadel, but like you can see the difference between the Arcane Blue and this. The Arcane Blue is super bright. I really like that for like PPC and Jump Jet Glow. Plasma Glow if I'm painting like Space Marines or something like that. Lots of like very small little ribby sharp details on the Piranha, so this will actually kind of help with the dry brushing, make it a little bit more noticeable on the harder edges. I feel like this is a little bit streaky. I'm going to try to offload a little bit of this moisture in paint. Jump Jet Glow, the spider you did recently was amazing. That was actually like, that was one of my worst, more like not so good Jump Jet Glows, so I really appreciate that. And that was definitely a mix of the P3 Arcane Blue with some Temple Guard Blue and white ink. I definitely have examples of Jump Jet Glow that are a lot better. Try not to be streaky on this guy here because all these rounded surfaces, it'll just kind of stand out a little bit more. I might just come in with a another brush and do this. Maybe a smaller dry brush so I can be a little bit more selective. I just don't want big streaks on the armor panels here, so. Make sure I really hit these harder edges. Add just a little bit more. There's there's not a lot of hard edges on this. It's kind of a harder miniature to dry brush effectively. I'm just gonna have to go into some of these areas with just a normal brush and edge highlight some of these areas on the lower extremities, which is totally fine. This is the last guy anyways, so we rinse out that dry brush so I don't get paint drying in it. That off to the side, same with this one. I just washed that one. Out here, have a quick sip of my coffee. Ooh, final sips. I am staying up late tonight. I don't have work tomorrow. I don't work for the next couple weeks. I have some time off of work, which is nice, so. Okay. So next up is going to be building just a little bit of base blue and, believe it or not, purple to. Ooh, Father Lucan now following. Thanks for the follow. We're going to be building a little bit of base blue and purple onto the torso areas of the mechs. We'll do the initial stuff with just airbrush. We'll kind of move through pretty quickly. Then we'll come back in with some sponges, and we'll use the sponges to kind of sponge glaze and build up some of these areas, especially around the edges, on the fronts and whatnot, the torso and all that goodness. And then we'll come back in with the airbrush to refine a few areas and kind of, you know, smooth out a few transitions on just a couple areas we want to focus on and highlight. And then after that, it's pretty much going to be decal or decal application. So we'll throw like a gloss coat, add some decals, another gloss coat to seal, then a matte coat to bring the finish back down nice and flat, and then we'll continue on with all of the detail work from there. So edge highlighting, adding more stars, all that good stuff. Yeah. So I am going to get up and take a quick 8-minute break. It's been about an hour. I'm going to try to do this hourly. We'll take like a quick 5 to 10 minute break so everybody can get up and stretch their legs and be all healthy and shit. So bear with me, folks. I will be right back. It is 8:35 now by my clock. I will be back by 8:43 with beverage in hand. See you folks soon.
drop the music here so you can actually hear what I'm saying. There we go. Yeah, we're gonna work on the torsos, start building up some volume with a bit of purple and blue, and then after we do that, we'll go in with some sponging, kind of build those layers up, and then we will go from there. See how long that takes us.
Okay, swapped over on mics. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my my glove. Okay, grab my airbrush again. Boom. Okay, it's out of the way very briefly. I'm gonna start with the purple. These royal purple from VMC, Vallejo model color, however you want to pronounce it. Go ahead and grab my thinner and flow improver. I won't need a huge amount of this. Start with just a bit of that. A little bit of flow improver. Now, the amounts that I'm putting in here kind of vary a little bit depending on the paint I'm using. Again, I was talking about paint consistency earlier there. It just really depends, like the paint that I'm using. If it's a thicker paint, I'm gonna have to use more fluids to kind of thin it down and make it flow better. If it's a thinner paint, I might just use flow improver. I might not use thinner at all. So it really just depends. Yeah, and I'm just kind of mixing in my pot here. I don't want any speckling with this. I want this to go on very, very thinly. This might actually be a little bit too thick still. We'll see. Oh, this might actually be perfect. Start again with this Warhawk. We'll zoom in a little bit. So I'm gonna kind of build. I'm gonna be very careful not to get overspray onto the arms and legs. I'm just gonna pick a few areas. I'm not gonna do the whole thing. Like so. You watch the video, the streams of us doing this with the drop tip. Kind of did the exact same thing. Just going in random areas over the torso where I want there to be colored, but I want to leave quite a bit of black showing through. I like adding this purple because once you start layering up these other colors, it does add quite a bit of tonal variation. It hides within the blue very well, especially once you start adding very bright blues. That purple just really helps to create a lot of additional contrast. Hit some of the underside there. I'll do a little bit on the missile pods because the missile pods are technically parts of the side torsos as well. The nice thing is we don't need to be super accurate here. So we're not doing like crazy detail work. We're just getting little area highlights. And we don't need to cover the whole thing. Again, we're going to be coming back in with some blue. So less is more, definitely. Again, doing this, you can afford to be rather quick. And honestly, the less you think about placement, the better. Prevents you from overthinking. You just lay the colors down and move on. Just make sure you're just careful to avoid the arms and the legs. This is another miniature that was just, if you can see on kind of that rear heat sink, there's just some mold lines on this that were atrocious. Some really bad mold slippage. So I went with the 90% solution. Nothing's perfect on that one. Again, the Warhawk and this Fire Moth, hardly any cleanup required. It was very bizarre. Kind of be cognizant of these little lift up arms. Getting a bit of a dry tip here. Quickly deal with this so I'm not getting like random spattering or anything on some of these other miniatures. Quickly that off and use my thumbnail just to kind of pull that paint off. Just pulling that little bit of paint off will help immensely. Great pattern. Good, we can do it nice and thin. Perfect. We'll go on to the Goshawk, or Paper Eagle rather. A lot of people get this paint scheme wrong. They tend to bleed over a lot of the star field onto the shoulders and the limbs, but it only calls for it on the torso on this paint scheme. So I'm just going to do the I'm not going to do the crotch areas of the mechs. I'm just going to do the upper torsos, basically the CT, the left torso, and the right torso. Good enough there. Not a very big area to work in on the Vixen, the Incubus. So yeah, less is more. Same thing with this Piranha. There's actually quite a few areas back here, like piping on the back of the rear torso there. A lot of those will probably end up as metallics in the end. So why not? Nice metallic pipes. Probably make them nice and shiny. Part of the top of the head here. A little bit of that torso shoulder. Alright, and the last one. Got the horned owl here. A little bit, and some of that torso. Cool. Good enough. Again, less is more. We don't want to overdo this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clean this quickly, and then we'll swap out to our blue color, which is going to be Intense Blue by Vallejo Monocolors. Want to make sure that any clogs that I may have forming in here I get out. Again, I'm going to plug this and create a bit of backflow while I have some water, and it's going to help strip any of the paint that's kind of worked its way back into the feed channel. Going to thin it out. Be clean, and this is already way cleaner, just from 2 quick flushes like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and flush it straight through all this water out the airbrush. Just flowing right now, and it's empty now. I'm gonna throw a bit of thinner through this just to kind of act as running low on cleaner. I want to just flush this with something that's going to break down some of the paint a bit. Just noticing a bit of a drop in pressure in my airline. Seem to have fixed it. It bumped the dial on my air compressor. You seem to have a bit of a clog here. Sorry if you already mentioned, but what is that spray bottle sort of thinner? No, this is just water. Literally just water. Jupiter's coming out, feature force pack. I thought, yeah, it might be. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's quite a few miniatures that Catalyst has on the horizon. A lot of classics are being redone and things like that. So there's quite a few that have been announced. I'm honestly, I'm not tracking all the ones. I'm not even tracking all the ones that have been announced, let alone all the ones that are unannounced that I do know about. I know about a few that are unannounced, but not that I'm going to spill those beans here. That would get me in big trouble. It is fun working with some of the guys, like just in Camel Specs, that work on the design team, because you know we get to know some of these things a little bit early on. Definitely looking forward to the Word of Blake Celestials. Those have been announced. Looking forward to those getting redone. The old miniatures are fun, but it'd be nice to have updated sculpts that aren't metal. Same thing with the Ares, or yeah, I guess it'd be the Ares Super Heavies. It's going to come with like all the variants in a single kit, so you can basically like magnetize everything and just have a single Ares that has all the different configurations. Your Hephaestus and Apollo and all that stuff. Okay. I definitely had a clog that was going on in here, and I have cleared the clog, so we can now continue on. Add a bit of thinner here and a little bit of flow improver. Not much, but just a bit. Don't need a lot. I'm going to use this intense blue. This is a very dark blue, but like it looks brighter on camera than it actually is. Few drops in there. Really excited for the Ares Super Mac. Yes, I have like an Ares Apollo, the metal one, and it was a bit of a pain in the ass to put together. I have the waist magnetized. I was gonna do the weapons, but I got a little bit lazy. So I'm just doing the waist on it. But it's so heavy. I mean, it weighs like, I'd have to weigh it, but I feel like it weighs like 2 pounds. It's an incredibly heavy miniature. I mean, there's quite a bit of work to do to it to make it acceptable for painting. I mean, considering it's like a $69 miniature. I think that's 69 Canadian, maybe not US. I'd have to double check. Okay, this is nice and thin. Kind of exactly what I want. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of repeat the process. I'm gonna overlap this on some of the purple that I've already laid on here, but I'm also going to just pick a few areas that are just straight up black. So, and again, less is more. You don't want to snuff out all the black here. So I'm going to leave some of these areas dark. Like so. And again, we are going to build the brightness on this quite a bit with some sponge work, so don't worry about making this bright right now. Kind of randomly going around the torso here and filling areas. Again, trying to overlap a few areas over top of some of that purple, but also hitting areas that are just straight up black, but also trying to make sure that I leave some actual black showing through. I think that's about good for this one. I don't want to get too crazy. Small clog here, I'm just going to fix. A little bit of dried paint on the tip, the needle. That's usually the culprit if you're doing very gentle trigger pulls and you're not getting any paint. It's usually because you have some paint dried on your tip. And that's good. All right, I'm gonna do one more bright area here, slightly more saturated, and I think that's good for this one. Just like that. That's pretty much it for the fire moth. We're halfway done these guys. This airbrushing step, and you can totally do this like I'm just doing this because this is quick and accurate. You can totally do this with like a sponge. There's nothing that says you can't do this with a sponge, or even just using like a filbert brush. What a filbert brush looks like using a smaller filbert brush like this and just stippling with these colors thinned down. You can totally do that as well if you don't have an airbrush. I just like doing this because it's very accurate and it's quick. Just like so. Go ahead, Just have a little bit more paint drying on the tip again. Could probably do with a little bit more flow improver in here. I'm gonna right now, just like a drop or two. Don't have a lot of paint in here. There we go. Coming out a little bit better. We'll go on to the Conjurer. Glad I had out East Coast time. This is already looking amazing. I'll definitely be painting along with the YouTube video. Thanks for the NovaCat Love, Arclight. Sent you a Facebook message earlier. I'll check my Facebook messages. I don't get notifications to my phone from any chat apps. I have that on purpose, just that way I'm not grabbing my phone all the time, as I get tons of messages. So I usually reply in big batches. And it's usually like once a week at most. So yeah, if you do end up messaging me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and I don't get back to you right away, it's because of that. It's not me ignoring you, I can assure you. I will get back to you at some point. But thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks for staying with us for this long. Have a good night. Just being a lot more ginger with this one and just doing very, very small area highlight. See, I'm just trying to really avoid those shoulders and stuff. Good for that one. Just got two left. Rana here, and then I also have the Incubus. Looking pretty good. And last one. Go. I'm just trying to make sure that the majority of the center torso and side torsos and the head are covered in some kind of color. It's okay if there's still black showing through for sure, but I do want at least 50% or more of all of those surface areas to be showing some kind of color tone. And that's just because once we build up to the focal points, we still want there to be that illusion of like a field of color and stars and not just a couple spots. So a lot of this will get not snuffed out, but overshadowed in a way by all of the highlight work that we're going to do going forwards. But that's fine, because this, if you don't do this step, the highlight work doesn't look as good. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and quickly rinse and clean this because we're all done with this color. And we'll start getting onto the sponge work, because that's going to be fun stuff. It's a very therapeutic process. And it's, I don't know, airbrush, sponge, and dry brush just really go a long way when bat painting. I think if you're painting 10 miniatures or more at a time, like that's quite a few miniatures to be painting at any given time. I don't really like painting more than a lance at a time or a star at a time. So like a level 2 of 6 mechs or demi company, that's kind of the most I usually paint in one go. So this is a little bit abnormal for me, although I did very recently do a lot of Erdani Light Horse. Like I did like a reinforced company essentially of Erdani Light Horse all at once, and that was quite the slog. So not something I like to do often, because it does get a little bit monotonous, but this is a very fun scheme, and we're going to find some ways to cheat on some of the other details. That way we don't spend too much time working on like metallics or highlighting the gray. I mean, we've already gently done some edge highlighting on the gray by way of doing the dry brushing. We'll do a little bit of weathering, kind of like what we did on the dropship, if you were here for that. And that will be our additional cheap edge highlights and cool weathering that makes things look realistic and have lots of flavor and character. Throwing a bit of thinner into this and plugging it and just swishing it around. Gonna let it drain out into there. Put a bit of paint dried onto this needle, or not dried but caked on. Grabbing the back end and pulling out, just kind of holding the middle. And then now I'm gonna grab this, and then I'll grab with the clean side of the paper towel and pull out towards the end of the needle. I'm gonna grab just a little bit of thinner on the paper towel just to help ease some of the paint off. Some of that blue was drying on. Just rolling the tip back and forth in my fingertips just to gently rub any paint off the tip, and that's nice and clean now. Now this nozzle, there's plenty of blue in there. I'm gonna go ahead and blow this out with the old Windex bottle because the nozzle fits over that little round nozzle perfectly. I discovered that completely by accident. So there, nice and clean now. Go ahead and put this back on. Do this on, and then blow out some of the excess. I'm making sure my trigger's seated correctly before I go and shove this in. That way I don't ram this needle tip into a piece of the trigger assembly. And I usually kind of ride my finger alongside here so I can kind of guide this in. Just like so. Very gently push it all the way to the end. And then I'll just kind of use my thumb to gently hold it in place. Grab the nut, throw it over, hold it in place. That way it's fully seated and there's no gap. But I don't apply a lot of pressure with this thumb, just a little bit. And boom, good to go, nice and clean. I'll quickly flush this with just a little bit of thinner and a little bit of water. If you ever run out of airbrush cleaner and you have lots of airbrush thinner and water kicking around, you can just use those. I'm getting pretty low on airbrush cleaner. I gotta restock, so. Nice and clean. Alrighty. Go ahead and remove the clutter. I'm gonna go ahead and toss these out. Actually, I'll hold on to this because I can use the other side, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out as well as my glove. Hydration break in the chat if you are still here. Make sure you guys hydrate. Super important. It's hot out here, dog. I'm gonna hydrate with this, some actual water, and then I'm gonna dehydrate with a little bit of hoppy beer. I will do that off camera though, so Twitch doesn't get mad at me though. Like this. Okay. Go ahead and move the airbrush over. Pop off a fresh piece of paper towel. I didn't need both of those, but that's okay. Alrighty, I'm gonna move this out of the way as well. It is hot in my office right now, I will tell you that. It's probably like 26 or 27 degrees Celsius, which is like low mid 80s Fahrenheit, so not the most comfortable. Years in advance, yes. Alrighty. So I do have these old bits of sponge. I've actually used some of the arcane blue. These are leftover actually from some of the last stuff that I did prior to the dropship doing this paint scheme. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start layering up some other colors. I also have here just a different sponge. This is just dried acrylics. I might actually use a little bit of this just on some of these parts here because it gives like a nice fine pattern. I have another couple of these. Another one of these here that's nice and clean. Might utilize a little bit of this. We'll see. One thing that is very handy though is if you have extra brush caps, using these to kind of stuff little nubs of sponge into, kind of acts like a little holder, makes it really handy. Try to do that with this. And I usually just kind of stick it in, like I'll kind of squeeze a corner in, and then I'll literally twist it like it's a screw, and I'll kind of force it into. Sometimes you got to rip off little bits, but I'll try to corkscrew this all the way in, so just have a bit of a nub sticking out. I also don't want to damage the brush cap in the process, so rip off a little bit there. I think that's probably good. It's a good little piece. Like so. Heyo, yeah, stick it in, squeeze it. I'm almost there. It's happening. Oh my god, it's in. Drop the movie name in the chat if you know what that line's from. Back from my high school days, man. Epic movie. Alrighty. Well, I'm starting to smell myself. I smell like a greasy nerd. Nerd I am. I'm gonna grab my beer and keep it a little bit more within reach here. By the way, happy to see you in here, Chris from Thunderhead Studio. I'm gonna grab my palette paper as well here, just to help check pattern. It's gonna be handy. I'm gonna pull the cap off my wet palette here, and I'll utilize this. I'm gonna start with a little bit of ultramarine blue. I'm really gonna layer up these colors. So it starts off as a bit of a tedious process, but once you start building it, it really pays off. But I definitely think layering up as much as possible through the darker colors really helps. Oh, there we go. I just thought I lost this thing for a second. Shock 21. I can't even see what that emoji is. Thunderhead Studio, thanks man. Trying to build up some momentum and get a regular stream schedule again myself. Yeah, it took me a bit. Like I fell off pretty hard just with the kiddo and everything, and work was pretty busy. So, but thankfully I've got a pretty good routine going right now, and doesn't seem like I'm gonna get sent anywhere in a hot second anytime soon. So. At least I'm hoping. So I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of water and kind of pull some of this paint away into this water pool. I don't want this to be super, super thin. Not quite glaze consistency, but almost. I'm gonna offload a bit of the excess moisture. And then we're gonna test the pattern here. We'll just kind of build like that. We're gonna focus around edges, the fronts of the torso, and the head. Basically any areas that we've already applied a lot of color layering. We'll just kind of focus on building this. We're starting big with the sponge, and then as we build in brightness, we'll start busting out the detail brush, and we'll do some like chunky edge highlights followed by more well-defined edge highlights, followed by like little point highlights on some of the edges and corners. And that's going to really help to pump up the brightness and the contrast. So right now I'm just kind of building all over. And by the way, I am using a Thunderhead Studios painting handle here. A little free advertising for Chris. Really enjoy this thing. It's got a bunch of 1 1/4 inch washers in it. 1 1/4 inch or 1.5 inch. I can't remember. I'd have to double check. And then a bunch of 1/2 inch magnets. This thing is super strong. I pretty much magnetize the bases of all my miniatures, either by gluing washers into them or gluing magnets into them. And then that's what allows me to stick them onto this. So I've just got a single 6x2 millimeter magnet glued into the bottom. A 2 millimeter thick magnet is essentially perfect for these bases, these Catalyst Game Labs hex bases. Now you don't need to hit every single edge with this sponge on the torso, but definitely try to get most of them. You can go back in with some of the ultramarine blue and some of the other mid-tone blues to refine some of those edges you don't hit with the sponge. You're just trying to get through the bulk of the work with this. I grab a bit more of that thinned down ultramarine blue, take off some of the excess, check the pattern, pattern's good. It's about what we started with on the other miniature. I'm gonna kind of focus on some of these like more prominent areas. And again, these areas where I've added a lot of color volume as it is, but all these front edges, forward facing panels, definitely want to make sure we build up on this. It's kind of a bastardized version of sponge glazing, like what Kevin does. So his is a little bit more refined and pretty than mine. And by Kevin, I mean Kevin Witt, aka Brushido, one of the other Camo Specs artists. He does a very good rendition of Clan Nova Cat Alpha Galaxy. Boom. So you can kind of see some of the blues starting to take hold and starting to dominate that purple. Domination. The blue is holding primacy over the purple. We'll use some nice buzzwords for you literary folk. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water into this ultramarine blue on my palette, just to bring the consistency down a little bit, and add a little bit more to my spongy sponge. Testing out the old pattern. I think we're good. I'm going to go to this Warhawk, the Hawk of War. We're going to hit some of these forward edges a lot more. Kevin has a really nicely done Warhawk in this paint scheme. He also cleaned more of the mold lines off of his than I did. Some of them were in some weird spots here, and I was cleaning them off at work. And again, I didn't really feel like spending too much time getting 100% of them. So again, I went for the 90% solution. Really build up on this front edge here. Because I have the airbrush handy, I'm not super worried about all of this being very smooth. A little bit of texture is actually, like, not actual physical texture, but visible, like, implied texture is actually kind of a good thing. It's going to help produce depth in that Starfield look, so don't fret, especially in these early stages. It's as you get later on in this this little paint job that you're going to want to have things be a little bit smoother, but right now they don't need to be super smooth. From Thunderhead, I saw going to have some more exciting news regarding the steel cord bases very soon, by the way. Nice. By the by. Very excited for that. I'm definitely digging the updates you've been doing on some of your Hextech stuff. Build that up. Adding a little bit more paint to my sponge. Offloading onto the paper towel, and again, I'm going to check the pattern here. So it's kind of hard to tell, but there is. Bring the sheet over here. So I have like a few like when I tap this down, I have a few well-defined spots, but then very faded, almost watery depositions of pigment. That's what I want. So that's kind of like the sponge glazing. So very, very thin, not a complete opaque sponging, like a couple opaque spots with a bunch of translucent or transparent paint going on as well. Gonna leave you up while I grab a bite. Thrilled to get more Battletech representation here on Twitch. Awesome, man. Hope to keep you entertained while you stuff your face. I'm definitely gonna stuff my face with a late night snack in a bit here. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more ultramarine blue to my palette. I definitely wouldn't mind updating my music for the stream. Just been using bits and hits and a little bit of Travis Heller or Harris Heller, whatever it's called. Yeah, Harris Heller stream beats. Wouldn't mind getting some other stream friendly music. I just don't want to pay a bunch of money for licensing. It's kind of annoying. I get, you know, pay artists their due and everything, but it's definitely not something. It's not like I make money off the stream, so not like I want to spend a ton of money on stuff like that. So, pardon me, I'm tapping my desktop a little bit too heavy. Reloaded my brush here, or my sponge. I guess it is a brush of sorts. Reloaded my paint sponge. Just coming around some of these edges. Especially all these forward edges. Kind of everything top and forwards is what I want to focus on. Unless on the sides I have some areas here. Let me zoom this out slightly. So we don't feel so claustrophobic in here. On some of these areas on the sides where there's a bit of color built up, I'll still obviously add a bit more of this, but I really want to focus on like the top edges, the forward edges. Consistency. I'd rather have it go on a little bit thinner than go on too thick. I'd rather have to spend a little bit more time building up this brightness than putting on a color that's way too bold. And that just a little too much. Yeah, that's perfect right there, I think. That's good. Want to make sure that I have a good, like, even spread of this color on this Timberwolf before I move on from it. So there's just a lot of I don't know, different unique surfaces on this thing, so spending a little bit more time on it. Whereas that Warhawk is kind of big and boxy, so it is a bigger miniature, but it has much more simple surfaces, whereas I want to kind of focus on a few areas on this specifically, so makes it a lot easier on the Warhawk to do that. Blue's starting to take hold nicely. You'll notice I say little sound effects from time to time. Usually boom, like Bob Ross will tell you, the sound effects do add to the paint job. They add a +10 to accuracy and a +3 to vibrancy on all paint application. It's true. Okay. Another boom for you. I'm gonna grab the pouncer here. Load up just a little bit more paint. Now you can see this is a little bit of a tedious process, but this is something that you can just like mindlessly do. I shouldn't say mindlessly, but like, I mean, kind of. Like, it's not like I'm sitting here really focusing on getting some like crisp straight lines or anything like that. I'm just tapping my heart out here. Kind of hitting all these exterior edges quite a bit. Focus around on the face of this pouncer. All these forward center torso sections. And having that purple, like, it's so subtle, but especially in certain light, you'll notice it quite a bit in that kind of the darker areas. And once you have this finished paint scheme with all the stars and the little highlight points and all the edge highlighting and stuff in there, it's going to add such a nice little subtle like tonal change throughout the paint scheme. Totally worth it. Totally worth it to have it in there. I definitely missed who just followed. I'm going to take a quick look at my my thing so I can congratulate you for joining an elite cadre of Twitch viewers and viewing my stream. I was too focused on tapping my heart out here that I didn't look at to see who's following me. Oh! Butterflies and bugs, thanks for the follow. White Fox, what's going on? Yeah, I am matching with the dropship. I actually have the dropship here. Boom. This thing's all sealed up. It's got its matte varnish on it, so it can actually be handled. But yeah. The R3AL now following. Thanks for the follow. Yeah. So yeah, we finished this over the last few streams. I think it took 12 hours total to paint this, start to finish. Not bad. Not bad at all. I just have it sitting up on a shelf above my PC. Enjoy looking at it right now. It's pretty fresh, and I don't know. I don't play a lot these days. Would love to. I just don't really have the time. So now the only time I'll ever really use that game, that dropship in a game, is probably just for like scenery on like an Alpha Strike game or something like that. Use it as a drop shuttle. I don't really play classic, so I'm a heathen. I just play Alpha Strike. I also play BattleTech Override, which is Death from Above Wargaming's system. It's kind of an amalgamation of the best parts of Classic, the best parts of Alpha Strike, and the best parts of the MechWarrior Destiny combat system. Streamlines everything, so you still get quite a bit of flavor. Kind of that cinematic feel, but plays really quickly. You can still pick your own like individual weapons, create ticks or like weapon groups, target interlock circuits. That's what ticks are, if you're not hip to that. Novacat Alpha Galaxy, correct. So, fun fact, Clan Novacat, all of their fleet assets use blue starfields, not just Alpha Galaxy's fleet assets. So that's just a fun little fact. Little factoid for you. A factoder. Trying to mind my P's and Q's when it comes to the hips here on the Incubus. Trying not to tap the sponge on it. I don't know if there's anybody here who is an athlete or just a general sweaty fuck like I am, but my shirt, I think, has been worn one too many times without being OxyCleaned. Because as I sit here and slowly sweat a little bit because it is hot as hell in my office, I can just smell musk. And not Elon Musk. I smell my musk. Not a big fan. Not a big fan. I have to go for a nice shower before I go to bed. Move my my white sheet of acrylic paper out so I can actually see the chat. Sounds like it's a pain in the ass to paint. Kind of is. Can be. I mean, it's not really a pain to do this. It just takes some time. But it's definitely not quick. Like the dropship, I spent about 12 hours on, and I could have spent longer if I really wanted to, because there's some other details that I could have like really spent a lot of time painting. But I don't know. I kind of went with, again, kind of the 80-90% solution on that, and just hit most of the finer details and then glossed over the rest. I also cheated on a few things like weathering and dry brushing for edge highlights and stuff like that. So of Mechs and Man, someone told me there is an Alpha Galaxy Nova Cats event happening. Oh, interesting. Like a game event? Yeah, me too, homie. My hobby room is probably 85 right now. Paint light is not cool. Yeah, I've got you folks probably can't see, but I also have like 2 key lights on either side of my desk along with my task lamp to fill this whole area with light. It's just good for photography and painting in general, because I don't know, I don't have 20/20 vision, so I like to have as many lumens in my workspace as possible. And yeah, it gets quite hot under these, I guess, stage lights of sorts. Like it gets very hot. I do have my window open, but it's been kind of hot and humid where I am lately. So is that handle 3D printed? Yes, it is 3D printed. I believe the files are free still on Thunderhead Studios website. So Chris from Thunderhead Studios and I, we've kind of gone back and forth on social media for a number of years now. Pretty much on and off since, I want to say, like partway through 2021. And started mostly just with me being a humble fan, enjoying a lot of his stuff, and then he eventually started sending me the odd thing to paint. So, and one thing that he wanted was a little bit of feedback on his painting handle design. And at the time I had a 3D printer. I had 2 3D printers. I had a resin printer as well as a filament printer. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll print that off. And I printed off the very first version. This is version 2.0. And the first version was pretty good. The painting handle, it's like the little thumb arch was a little bit more flimsy on the first version. It just wasn't quite as thick, so it didn't have as much rigidity, and mine eventually broke. But once he put out 2.0, like version 2.0, I reprinted it. I don't have a 3D printer anymore, so if I ever break this one, I'm kind of shit out of luck. I'll have to send the files to somebody else to print. But yeah. It's definitely very nice. It's a magnetic painting handle. It's loaded with 1/2-inch magnets and washers. The washers are just to keep the bottom very bottom heavy, so it doesn't topple over. But the little puck comes off just like so. I've just got a single magnet glued in. I'll also do like a washer, a steel washer, glued in the base, but on these bases that have these little pegs, little peg points, I just use the magnets because the washer doesn't fit. Warwolf, got to leave for today. Thanks for the stream. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, I'll definitely be continuing these mechs on Thursday, same time, doing another 4 hours. So don't miss out on that. I'll continue these on Thursday. I'm also probably going to be doing a couple short streams throughout the week. Probably the next few evenings I'll do like 8:30 to 10:30, but I'm going to be working on different stuff, just to switch things up. So thanks for coming out. Looking forward to having you for the next one. Yeah, I'm looking to try to get a more consistent streaming schedule, especially during the week. The last couple weeks I dabbled a little bit with doing like Monday and Thursday evening streams, just like 2 hours on those evening streams, and it was kind of nice. It kind of forced me to sit down for a set period of time during the week and actually focus on hobbying and getting some of my projects done. And my wife is very, very accommodating and also very encouraging, so it's nice to know that she kind of holds the fort down while I sit and do this, although our daughter is usually in bed quite early, so thankfully I can usually hop on here unabated by the time 7:30 rolls around. Lit DeForest now following. Thanks for the follow. Go ahead and add just a little bit more paint to my palette. I think once we go up to the next color here, it's gonna really start to show some good highlighting quality. Of Mechs and Men, thanks for the follow. Really appreciate it. Start off on the head on this guy. Thin this down just a little bit more heavily. Because there's a lot of curved surfaces here, so I just want to have it go on just a little bit thinner. It's not very hard. I don't have like a ton of hard edges to really hit and create lots of contrast, so I'm just gonna build up the color slowly on this guy. Got just a little bit of paint on the shoulder. See if I can gently scrub that off. I don't want to rub this too hard. I don't think so. That's okay. So I got just a little bit of blue on the shoulder pauldron. That's fine. I'll go back in with like probably just my my black gray from Vallejo, and I'll just stipple over top, and that will kind of cover that up. Small mistake, not a big one. And not the end of the world. It's going to happen sometimes when you're working with sponges, especially on tiny little miniatures like this. I'm getting a little bit on the forearm there. That's fine. I'll have a couple areas on this arm, especially, that I'll have to come back and touch up. So not the end of the world. Try to get around the antenna on this head. I did add antennas to a couple of these guys. I use something called Beadalon bead stringing wire. It's Beadalon, Beadalon. I use the 0.02 millimeter thick stuff specifically, or it's 0.2 millimeter thick stuff specifically, or 0.015 inches thick. That's the crossover point. Both measurements are listed on the package, by the way, so if you're interested, they're really nice, they're flexible, they don't poke your fingers. They're snippable with like normal scissors too, so it's a super handy product, and it's what I use for all my antennas. I'm gonna move on from this guy. This guy's going to benefit a lot more from just traditional edge highlighting, and then I'll probably use some of these bright colors and stipple along some of these edges with a normal brush as opposed to the sponge, just because it's a bit of a weird, it's got some rounded surfaces, there's no hard edges to kind of hit, and it's in a weird spot where I keep hitting it off the arm, so I want to save myself a bunch of touch-up work. I'm just going to move on from it, and instead of doing a bunch of touch-up work, I'll just edge highlight and edge stipple with a normal brush. Whereas this Conjurer or Hellhound, whichever vernacular you prefer, whichever nomenclature rather you prefer, has some really good hard edges, especially on the front side here. All these hard angles and stuff like that, so makes it very nice for doing this technique. A little sponge here is holding a decent amount of moisture too, so it's nice. This color isn't drying out as I'm applying it. Sometimes when you're sponge glazing, as your sponge starts to lose moisture, you'll start getting bolder and bolder application. It's kind of usually your indication, like, hey, time to add a little bit more moisture, a little bit more paint to the brush or the sponge. Build up on the head here, on the back of the head. And again, like these, when you have like flat surfaces and these harder edges, this technique works a little bit better. So this is applying a little bit better than that, than it was on the Horned Owl. And it's just because all those hard corners catch the paint a lot more easily. though. Building it up. Build the machine. I'm going to go back to this horned owl and just use some of this mix on the head. A little bit on this front glacis plate on the center torso. Just to build a bit of that color. Especially on that head. I think pretty much all the heads here are going to get an emphasis of color, because the head and the canopy are always kind of the focal point of the mech. So definitely want to make sure there's color built up. That's a little bit better. That's kind of more close to what I wanted. I'm just going to hit the underside of this center torso glacis plate a little bit. All right, all we have is the Goshawk or the Vapor Eagle, again, depending on which nomenclature you want to use. Still got a decent amount of moisture and paint here, so we're just going to hop right into it. We're going to focus on the head. All those raised areas. I apologize for the silence. I've just been staring off at this thing. Just in the zone, my dudes. I have been thinking actually about potentially starting a very small, modest Discord channel with just an auto mod, specifically for this stream. And my thoughts being maybe the last, 20, even 30 minutes of a stream, depending on how many people are watching, we can I can have a sub channel for miniature submissions, and people can post photos of what they're working on, miniatures they just finished, like any work in progress shots, whatever, anything that they're working on. It doesn't even have to be miniatures, it can be anything art related, and we can all take a look at it and critique it as a group and offer praise. I think that'd be fun. Kind of interactive. Allows me to see what all my viewers are working on too, and get some potential. Might even help me with ideas for later streams. Who knows? Let me know in the chat if that's something you'd be interested in. Alrighty. I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next color here. Okay. It's big. We finally made it through all of these miniatures with the blue on the sponge, and that is it's a dark blue. It's ultramarine blue, so it's we actually have, it's kind of funny, I have two different bottles of ultramarine blue, but one is Vallejo and one is Army Painter. The Army Painter one is just a little bit lighter and a little bit more desaturated, so I went with this one actually just because it's a little bit brighter in value. Now we're going to move on to crystal blue. This is another color from the Army Painter. This is a noticeable step up. This is a true mid-tone blue. And then after this, we're going to be moving into brighter territory, which is going to be like the Temple Guard blue, and then eventually Arcane blue from Formula P3. But we'll start first with the crystal blue, and you'll see it on the palette. This is remnants of the ultramarine. Very, very bright in comparison. So here's where we're going to start to see some of that volume get turned up. It's actually kind of nice because there is a little bit of tiny bit of wet ultramarine paint in here. The two colors will mix a little bit, which will actually help ease some of that transition. We'll start off with the Blackhawk. I'm gonna use my wet palette sponge to load a little bit of moisture into my sponge, and then I just offload a little bit of that excess onto there. Add a little paint, and then offload this little bit of excess moisture and paint onto the paper towel. I can test my patterning on piece of paper. It's looking about good. So now with these, now with this application, I'm going to be a little bit more discriminatory and selective with where I place and don't place this color. I said the D word, discriminatory. I wanted to see if I could make anybody upset by saying that word. I'm going to discriminate certain areas of this. Very funny word. Not funny, not haha funny, just it's definitely ways to use discrimination and not the negative context, but a number of other synonyms that you can use in that context, so I can definitely understand why people don't use the word discriminate when they're talking about choosing between two different things. Blackhawk, I think you mean the Honorable Nova. Yes. I am a clanner at heart. It is a Nova. But I like to use the inner sphere nomenclature occasionally. You can already see like this brightness in some of these edges is starting to pump up quite a bit, and this is our mid-tone, so it's gonna get even brighter from here on out. It is interesting. I was mentioning earlier in the stream that I watched Warfare for the first time yesterday. It took me a little while to decide what I was going to watch. I wanted to watch a movie yesterday while I was just kind of putzing around and doing a little bit of hobby work, and I had a hard time picking what I wanted to watch. And it's interesting. So there's a cat named Chris Williamson that I follow. He has a pretty interesting podcast called Modern Wisdom, and he has this. He loves coming up with little monikers and names for these little concepts he has. Just kind of little thought experiments, but also just kind of philosophical ideas. And one of them revolves around the advent of almost having too much choice, too much access, too many things to choose from. You know, if we I found myself struggling to pick which movie I wanted to watch. There was like 3 or 4 different movies. I was like, oh man, like all these are really good, or seem like they could be really good. They seem worth my time, but I just don't know which one I want to pick. And it's like, well, just pick one. You know, you can watch the other ones at another time, but we always have this thing where, you know, it has to be the right one, or else I'm wasting my time. You know, whereas back in the day when you only had a few TV channels to pick from, well, you know, you just picked one. And you know, if it wasn't good TV, well, you could at least blame the fact that you've only got 3 choices to choose from on, you know, your night of TV kind of sucking. Whereas if, you know, now today you have so many options to pick from that if your night of enjoying TV kind of sucks because the TV show sucked or the movie sucked, well, now it's your fault because you're the one who picked the bad movie or bad TV show to watch. So it's almost like there's this pressure to pick the right thing to watch. I'm going to use my time the right way by watching the right thing. The thing that'll make me the most satisfied. It's a weird way to look at it. But I definitely see the merit to that thought process. And sometimes it's nice, just throw a dart at the wall and see what it hits. Really trying to build up a little bit more volume around the front here. That's probably about good for the fire moth. I do hear my daughter stirring. At least she goes back to bed right away. Go ahead and add a little bit more crystal blue to my palette. Now, crystal blue is fairly thin out of my bottle, so I don't need to really add much water to the paint on the palette. I just add a little bit of water to my sponge, and that thins it down enough for the application that I need. Focus on this front edge first, and then I'll kind of come up to this front edge here. These are very, very prominent. I'll kind of hit these down. This one's coming down on the sides here. And then I'll kind of hit this bubble canopy area, because that's always a good area to kind of build up a bit of brightness. Now this paint consistency is a little bit closer to glaze consistency. Because I want this build up to be a little bit more smooth, with a little bit less obvious texture kind of theme going on. This takes a little while to do. Like, this is like, we're probably not going to finish all of the, well, you know, actually we still have an hour and a half. We'll probably finish most of the blue build up. We just won't get to the stars, at least not the start of the stars for this this stream. But it is a very therapeutic way to paint. Like, this is very relaxing. It's one of the most relaxing ways to paint, with a sponge or a dry brush. So I love using the old trademark term, slop it up, but you can just kind of slop it up. Same thing when you're doing weathering and stuff like that. Like, it's just a very fun, organic process that you don't really have to think too much about. And it's just kind of fun, you know? Like, it's a very enjoyable way to paint. So there's a cat, Dale Ida. He runs Hardware Studios, among other things. He's also one of the Camo Specs artists, goes by Wonder Gecko, and one of his favorite ways to paint. And he showed me how to at Gen Con last year, which was very, very fun. And he'll kind of do like a zenithal primer coat, essentially. He'll especially when it comes to his Jade Falcons, he'll spray prime them in purple, and then he'll kind of spray them from over top with like a mid-tone bright green, like a mid-tone, like pure, like proper green, like a green skin or goblin green. And from there, he just uses sponges and makeup brushes and oil paints to kind of build the rest of the color and texture and edge highlights. Super fun to do, especially with like oil brushers paints. It's really fun. Something I wouldn't mind doing on stream eventually. He's actually, if you go to the Camo Specs YouTube channel, there is a stream recording of Dale showing how he paints with oils. I highly recommend you go check it out. Like, it makes his miniatures look like he took a lot of time to work on them, and he'll spend a few hours at most per miniature. these hard edges on the top of the torso here. Just trying to build that up a bit. The nice thing is we do have the airbrush within our arsenal, so I can come back in and soften some of these transition points a little bit with some of the brighter blues that I have, in addition to doing like some of the cleaner edge highlight work and chunky edge highlights to kind of fill in some of these areas and make them look a little bit more bold and sharp. Focusing a little bit less on the back here. I'm probably going to do like a nice star in that little open area there. It seems like a good little flat spot for a star. Essentially, once we build up all this blue, before we continue and add more detail to all of this, we'll go through and we'll block in all of our details using black. So anything that we're going to paint with metallics, like some of these heat sinks, the canopy panels that we're going to be painting other colors later on, we'll block those in with some black ink or black paint if that's your preferred method. I use ink, but this is because I prefer artist ink for black. Anyways, yeah, we'll block in all those detail areas with black just to kind of break everything up and then clearly delineate what we're actually going to build up with stars. There's no sense in taking a panel that's going to be painted in metallics and building up with this color even further to refine it if we're going to be painting it another color later on. So this is kind of the quick and dirty solution to get the bulk of the work done. We'll break everything up into its component parts by using some black to break up all the details, and then we'll go in and refine with all these colors. Did you make this sponge tool? Kind of, yeah. So if you weren't here earlier, I'm just using a brush cap, just from a brush, and then I just grab a nub of sponge that I kind of rip little bits off of, kind of squeeze it, and then twist it into the cap, and then that becomes my little applicator tool. Add just a little bit more crystal blue to my palette soon here, but got a good amount of glaze consistency stuff here I want to add on before I carry on with adding more paint. I want to build up a little bit more on these forward panels. When it's in a glaze consistency, you kind of have to take your time doing that. Gotta let it dry, but as you can see, this is starting to brighten up quite a bit. Really, really nice. Very, very good. A little bit more of the black on this, or the back on this one, and then we'll move on to the Timberwolf. I think that's good enough for now. We'll just hit up a little bit more on the front here. This front area is going to get built up quite a bit with brightness, so go ahead and grab the Timberwolf. Right on the canopy area here. I'm going to kind of leave my painting handle sitting on the desk. Build up around this canopy, and I'm going to build up kind of on the front of the center torso, just behind the head. So the Timberwolf is a bit weird like that. Its head is essentially where its center torso should be, and its center torso sits behind it. Not exactly a very safe design, B52. Bubble canopy look. I guess it's the Flying Fortress from World War II that has more of a bubble canopy look than the B52s. B52 is more modern. Can't remember the number designate, like the alpha numeric designation for the Flying Fortress. Somebody Google that. Drop it in the chat. E17, that's the one. That's the one, yeah. Flying Fortress. Now there's a Super Fortress. B29, yeah, B29 is the Super Fortress, that's the one, yeah. Flying Fortress and Super Fortress. They both have quite the bubble canopy to them. And that's definitely where the Timberwolf draws a lot of inspiration from. And it's funny because I love Battletech and MechWarrior, but one of the things I absolutely hate is the whole idea of actual canopy panels. Like, to me, the idea that, like, with Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam having, you know, the pilot enshrouded in armor within the center torso just kind of makes a lot more sense to me in so many ways. But I digress. They're big stompy robots in the far future. I can't really hope for like super realistic expectations all across the board. Really trying to focus along like kind of the bigger edges because I don't want to snuff out all that purple, but I am also trying to build up around that canopy. Yeah, when BT has giant autocannons, cockpit glass doesn't make sense. Well, and like they try to do away with it being actual cockpit glass by being like, oh, it's ferro glass, so it's like it's armored glass. But like still, like I mean, like even like, you know, I guess you could be like, well, you know, like modern armored vehicles have periscopes, but like, yeah, they're periscopes. Like they're not direct. Like we don't have direct windows going outside within armored vehicles. We have little, you know, a plate of view port, a periscope that goes down, and then the view plate on the inside of the vehicle. So you still have all that armor standoff between you and whatever you're looking at. Yeah, I could definitely see them wanting to have some like, you know, Mark 1 eyeball ability within a mech, you know, so you can actually visibly look out like a viewport of some kind, but it should be like something that like break glass in case of emergency, that you like would manually like flip up if your sensor suite shits the bed or gets hit, takes too much damage. That would just make more sense to me. Like, oh, my sensor suite's down, I gotta go Mark 1 eyeball, so here we go. Hope I don't die now by getting one through my viewport. That's good for now. But I hope you folks can see like where this is going. Like this is, I've shared photos of Kevin's mechs. We're starting to get there. Not there yet, but we're starting to get there. 5 more to go. I don't know, I always like the earlier descriptions of like from even the Grey Death Legion trilogy, when they talk about the wasp, like the little bug mechs, like the wasp, the locust, the stinger. They don't really talk about like proper canopy panels per se. They talk about IR sensors, you know, like a red eye moving back and forth, and that's what is actually looking. And then when you're on the inside the locust, you have, you know, a tiny little canopy panel, but you also have like monitors everywhere that give you more situational awareness. That makes a lot more sense to me. But even with the locust, I would rather have like a periscope, not a central canopy panel. I'd rather have periscopes, like multiple periscopes with multiple little viewports, kind of pointing out and kind of arcs to my front and sides that I can kind of, you know, have something drop down around my head as I'm sitting in the thing, and then look to my left and right through these viewports if I had to, because all my sensors were down. And plus, they already talk about how they have like I think it's like a 360 degree view compressed into 160 degrees within their Nero helmet. So at that point, anyways, like you don't really need the cockpit canopy anyways. You already have your heads-up display with augmented reality feeding you everything you need to help keep you alive and help make the enemy dead. But anyways, I digress. When I make my universe with my big stompy robots, they're not going to have canopy panels. Noticing a little hair stuck on this guy. I'm just trying to wipe it off. I think we got it. Yeah, man, even with the tech degradation during the Succession Wars, I feel like if you've got starships and giant mechs, you could pretty much easily use a suite of cameras and displays in an armored cockpit. 100%. It's just a product of the time that BattleTech was made. You know, like it's just for them it was a lot more style making the substance, if that makes sense, rather than the substance dictating the style. At least early on, I think that's changed a little bit, but at a certain point you can't retcon the whole idea of how mechs are designed. Kind of flies in the face of the whole thing. So I do find it like it's going to be interesting if they start introducing drone tech into the game again at a level that isn't like what Word of Blake was using it as. Because my oh my, looking at what's going on with drone warfare today, whoo, scary shit. Might have to steal a sponge technique. It's super slick, honestly. It makes this way easier. I would prefer to do the sponge augmented with a little bit of airbrush refinement than just doing it airbrush completely, or trying to stipple with like a filbert brush. The sponge gives the overall right, like correct appearance for this. So. '80s retro future style, yeah, 100%. I mean, they did get a couple things right. They talk about note pewters and things like that, which are basically smartphones. You know, they kind of stole that idea from Star Trek with the tricorder, but yeah, it's not like it's a brand new idea. Anyways, it's something that's always been fancied from the initial invention of computers. Like one of these days, he'll be able to have a watch. Oh, remember all the movies from like the late '90s and early 2000s that had like crazy smart watches? And then even when people, like the reality of how that turned out, like even actual smart watches, like people don't use them how people thought they would in movies. Like they use them to like track their fucking steps and answer the occasional text message. That's about it. Spy Kids. That movie had some crazy cool watch gadgets. Also, maybe the coolest set of sunglasses in all of cinema history. Sunglassception with the many different displays that just extend out in front of the kid's face. Hell yeah, dude. The future is now, old man. Eric, thanks for the follow. I hope I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I'll pour one out for the homies or something. I don't know. Hey, my respects. You got it. Sounds good. So the nice thing about having magnetic base is I can just kind of spin this guy freely on the base, on the painting handle if I want. So if my my little thumb rest gets in the way, I can just spin this guy around. Again, me with the little boom sound effects. It adds essence to the paint job. Don't discount it. Okay. A little heavy-handed on that one there. That's okay. Fuck, she bangs, dude. We're gonna move on to the next one. I'm gonna add just a little bit more onto this piranha here. I think the head and the torso could get a little bit more volume, especially up top here. His little six pack abs, or I guess 4-pack, kind of a 6-pack, little 6-pack on this guy. He's actually got 2 6-pack. Well, no, I was gonna say 2 6-packs, kind of. He's got like triple nip lasers, plus the old Iron Man special right in the middle, and then the little 6-pack lasers on either sides of his abs. Pretty cool, man. I love the piranha, especially in MechWarrior Online. Oh my god. It is such a pain in the ass to deal with. Very hard mech to use, especially trying to use it effectively, but very, very fun. Loaded up with small pulse lasers or machine guns or even AP Gauss. My goodness. Crits all day, son. 2 mechs left, and then we're going to be on to the next blue. And that next blue will probably take us to the end of our regularly scheduled programming for tonight. Hellhound Conjurer has quite a few hard edges on it, so I love these boxy, sharp bodied mechs for this technique because things pop. they'd be popping. Especially around the canopy framing, I'm really going to kind of try to heavily stipple there to kind of build up around those edges. I'm going to go back in and be refining that later, so I don't really care if it's big and bold. It's kind of what I'm going for right now. Big and beautiful. Really going to focus towards kind of the front half of that missile launcher. A lot of these top panels and edges on the back side there, and then a little bit on this little bottom portion, kind of tucked underneath that set of jump jets. Later on, when we get to painting some of these details, I might actually do a little bit of airbrush work with some of these jump jet ports. I've had a few people ask how I do my jump jet ports. I've shown how to paint a few of them on stream in very basic ways, but never with the airbrush. So maybe I'll do that later on toward the end of painting all these mechs. I'll pick a few out and we'll really knock a few details right out of the park, and then the majority we'll just call good enough and move on with our lives. As again, I'm all about that 90% solution. We'll make a few of these look super stellar, and then the rest we'll just kind of have them look good. Good enough. Really trying to build up around that canopy framing a bit more, and on some of these forward panels. It's looking pretty good, if I don't say so myself. Pretty happy with that. I'm going to move on to the Vapor Eagle here, and then that'll be it for the crystal blue. And then we'll move on to some Temple Guard blue, which is not our final highlight blue. The next one will be arcane blue, but we'll do that with just an actual detail brush and edge highlight. And then we'll start mixing a little bit of white into the arcane blue and build up the edge highlights to be even brighter on those hardest, sharpest corners. But that'll be a later thing. That'll be after we kind of delineate some of the other details by blocking in some of the details with black and kind of breaking up the overall profile of this thing. That way we're not edge highlighting a bunch of stuff that's going to end up just being painted in like metallics or other colors. Whatever we're going to be painting those areas with. People often scoff at people who fancy themselves like, I don't know, top tier painters, tend to look down on using sponging and dry brushing, but I think it's just as valid as glazing or non-metallic metals or anything else. I think it's all set and setting, depends how you use it, and there's definitely some do's and don'ts that can make or break the techniques. It's just another tool in your toolbox, right? Like using a screwdriver as a hammer all the time. I mean, you can use a screwdriver as a hammer, but is it the best tool for the job? Probably not. If you got one tiny little nail tack to get into a wall, you might be able to get away with a quick little couple thwacks with a screwdriver. But if you're trying to frame a whole house, well, figure out how that'll go. It's looking pretty nice. Digging this quite a bit. I build up just a little bit on the face and the chest. Coming in with a bit more of a opaque coat here, just on some of these areas that I want to build up. Creating some little focal points. This guy's got some jump jets as well, and these are some bigger jump jet ports, so these will actually be fun to kind of airbrush and do a little bit more work on later. I'm just going to hit this back panel here a little bit more. Good enough. All right, we're going to move on to the last blue for the night. Have a little sippy sip of my drink. I'm also going to step out and take a quick stretch because we didn't do that an hour ago. We've got 1 hour left in the program. I'm going to get up and take a quick, like, maybe 10-minute break. It's 10:30 right now. We'll be back at 10:40. We'll carry on, and we'll crack through the rest of this blue sponge work, and we'll see what we're left with kind of at the end here. I think this is going to look pretty crispy. Not super crispy, but it's going to look pretty crispy, and it'll give us a good base to work from for the remainder of the work that we're going to do on kind of the star fields. So we'll hop off and take a quick break here, and we'll be back in 10 minutes, folks.
Alright, folks, I got back a little bit early from my break. I'm just going to pop over to just chatting while I sip on beer for the time being. I do realize I didn't answer Vericure's last message there. NMM, which is non-metallic metal for those who don't know, is just current self-indulgent technique. However you get to the end product does not matter as long as it looked good to you. Yeah. No P. 100%. Non-metallic metal is definitely something I'd like to get better at. I'm not that good at it. Done some non-metallic metals, but very simple stuff. So I wouldn't mind picking something that has a mix of shapes and doing like a whole piece as non-metallic metal. I think it would be pretty cool. I try to keep up with current events, and the current event that's been blowing up my feed lately is I don't know if anybody here is hip to who Tim Kennedy is. Former UFC fighter, U.S. Army Green Beret, making some pretty bold claims about his service, and got caught lying. He's in some pretty hot water with a lot of folks right now. Seems like he was trying to make a move into politics, and don't know how that's going to go now. It's all fun and games until you steal some valor, and start making claims like you were surrounded by 400 Iranian fighters. Pretty interesting stuff. Anyways, I digress. Vericure, I don't think it is worth the time it takes to do. Yeah, I mean, it's more of a creative exercise than anything. It's definitely like you can get work that looks just as good, if not better, using true metallic metals, because I feel like non-metallic metals only looks good from a few angles, whereas true metallic metals you can have it look good from any angle, and that's why I think for tabletop especially, true metallic metals is just really where it's at. But if you want to do a display piece that's meant to be viewed from in a very specific way, I think non-metallic metals can go a really, really long way to making something look really sharp. Can't fathom why he already had a phenomenal career. Why embellish? Yeah, no kidding, man. Like, you're a fucking U.S. Army Green Beret. There's no need to lie. Like, yeah, and he definitely, like, he deployed to Iraq and he deployed to Afghanistan. But according to, I mean, recent photos of him wearing his dress uniform, like, you can see, for those who don't know, like, I'm Canadian military, but I know a relatively good amount about the U.S. military, and you can tell pretty much everything about a guy's career based on his chest, what ribbons he has, and pins and medals. Like, so, you know, you can see that he has deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, but probably not 20 times plus. Yeah, it's just weird. Anyways, let's get to painting. We're a minute late. Let's get back to sponging, and we'll continue this talk at the painting desk. All right. Yeah, the whole thing with Tim Kennedy just boggles my mind. Non-metallic metal is better for photography, as you cannot get reflections. Yeah, definitely, and you also control the lighting in that state as well. Whereas if you like, that's I've always found weird for things like Golden Demon. Like, I'd be really curious to know like what kind of lighting they view the miniatures underneath when they're judging them, because when they have them up in their display cases, like, they're not always lit well. So I imagine that some of the oomph gets lost on some of those pieces when they're just sitting in those display cases at Adepticon. But I wonder if the Golden Demon staff take those miniatures that have things like non-metallic metals and whatnot and put them under like very bright lighting, like what I have here on my desk.
Got a dog going nuts in my neighborhood right now. So I just put some Temple Guard Blue onto my palette. I have way too much water in my sponge. I definitely should have offloaded, but I wanted to also hydrate this paint a little bit. It's an airbrush paint, so out of the bottle it's already fairly thin, but I do want to thin this down a bit. Now this, I want this to be a little bit more bold, because I'm just going to be kind of hitting some of these edges with it. The Tim Kennedy thing's kind of weird, and then Marcus Luttrell. There's a lot of evidence to show that a lot of, you know, the lone survivor tale is just not fact. Say that as gently as I can. Pretty much everybody, every other U.S. service member that was working in and around that valley at that time had very different things to say about the disposition of the enemy and how many enemy Taliban fighters resided within that valley at that time, as well as how many fighters were actually engaged with that SEAL team. It's just weird, man. You know, like I can definitely see, like, I guess, you know, probably the U.S. government wanted to win, so they, you know, they just wanted to create a hero story out of it, create positive PR out of, you know, what was unfortunately one of the worst tragedies in naval special warfare. They lost like over 30 SEALs, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. Yeah, like so with Marcus Luttrell's story, like even Mohammed Ulab, whatever the hell that guy's name is, the guy that rescued him, he had a very different accounting. And so what likely happened was they got ambushed by 8 to 12 Taliban fighters at close range, and yeah, I mean, especially if it's 12 Taliban fighters, I mean that's 3 to 1 odds. That's doctrinal offensive action at the infantry level. Like, you want 3 to 1 advantage as much as possible if you're going to attack. So literally 12 Taliban fighters all engaging in an ambush, like, yeah, you're probably going to all get schwacked, as unfortunate as it is. And even 8, you know, a whole section's worth of Taliban fighters lying in wait, get the drop on you and open up with machine guns, catch you off guard. Good luck, man. So when I was going through my training system, I had a really awesome guy, Yazin. He was a Somali dude, and he was older. He was 36 when we were going through the training system, and this was a number of years ago. I was 24, 25 at the time. And so this guy led a crazy life. So he was, you know, born and raised in Somalia. He didn't move to Canada until the early 2000s. And he was a taxi driver for a number of years. He joined the Canadian military because his kid told him that he wanted to grow up to be a taxi driver, because he was counting cash one day after working, and his kid saw him counting cash and was like, I want to be a taxi driver. And his dad was like, no, you don't want to be a taxi driver. I'm like, no, you want to be something different, like a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. His kid's like, no, but look at all this money you're making, I want to be that. So he wanted to set a better example for his kids, so he joined the military. I thought it was a pretty honorable thing. He didn't end up making it through the infantry side of the training system, but you know, ended up going on to do something else. Anyways, when we were on our infantry course, before he unfortunately got the boot, he was telling us stories, because he grew up in the Bakar market in Mogadishu and had like photos and all kinds of cool shit from that time in his life, and also really insane stories. Like, yeah, his uncle was a member of one of the militias. I mean, there's dozens of militias, man. Like, it was crazy. Like some of them were like 5, 6 people big. Some of them were like hundreds. Some of them were thousands of people big. And I can't remember the name of the big one, but that was the one that Muhammad Farahreddin ran. But yeah, he was in the Bakar market, hiding out in his shitty apartment when that whole thing was going on. He's like, I could hear the Humvees driving by, shooting machine guns, like crazy stuff. I had a point of bringing up Yaz into this thing. Oh yeah, when we were going over ambush tactics on my infantry course. It was a funny thing to us. We all have dark senses of humor in the infantry. When our instructors were talking about ambush tactics and counter ambush and how you could survive an ambush, Yazin just kind of looked at all of us, shook his head, and he's like, no one survived ambush. And our instructors kind of giggled, and they're like, yeah, honestly, like if an ambush is set up properly, like nobody's surviving it. It was just interesting being on a course with a guy who grew up around warfare and was now trying to join to do that as his job. It was just it was very interesting, especially, you know, he was not old, but, you know, 36 is pretty old to be joining the infantry. You're an old man at that point in the infantry. Like, you should be well on in your career, thinking about, you know, higher leadership positions, things like that. Yeah, whatever truth he did or didn't tell, the valley was a death trap. Oh, definitely. It's definitely a death trap. Not 200 Taliban fighters death trap. That was the claim. Try to focus on the front end on this Warhawk, especially around the canopy. Military is definitely a weird place. I'll definitely say that. It takes all kinds to make that place run, but it's definitely a weird spot to be sometimes. Some of the people you meet, you're just like, how did you end up here? And then I look at my own life and I'm like, how did I end up here? I grew up next to Miramar. The military is an eclectic group of folks. Yeah, that's, you know, I think at a certain level it takes a bit of an odd duck to want to do anything in the military, really. I don't know. At least when I first joined the military, the whole idea with the entire Canadian Forces didn't really matter what trade you were going into. You know, if you're going in as a clerk or going in as an infantryman, the whole idea was soldier first. You know, kind of like with the Marines. You know, Marine first. So, you know, I think to wrap your head around that and be not okay with it, but accept it as just a potential state of being with your occupation is, yeah, it takes a certain kind of person. And they definitely don't fit one mold. I always find it weird when rich kids get into the military. I don't know why. I know a few rich kids in the military, and like one of them is actually one of the best soldiers I know. I always find it bizarre when rich kids get in. Why didn't you like go do? You know, did your parents not like you? Dad didn't want you working on his business with them. Like, what's going on? But it is a pretty, I guess, you know, young, especially young men, you know, sense of adventure and all that. That's an understatement. I've served myself with something like 24 dudes in my life between family and friends have. The sheer volume of whack-ass stories. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. A lot of type 2 fun in the military. A lot of stuff that sucks while you're doing it, and then you kind of laugh about it later. So a lot of this stuff that I'm putting on is still going to look a little bit rough, and that's okay, because once I come back in with a detailing brush and I do like actual proper edge highlights, this is all going to kind of blend together and create a nice synergy. That's the word I'm going to use to describe it. But it's going to all come together, and all those hard edge highlights are going to really sharpen things up, and this won't look so kind of chunky. Trying to apply a very little amount of pressure on this area here. I don't want to cover too much of the panels. Try to mirror what I do on one side and the other. Starting to build up quite a bit. These mercenaries are a particular faction. These are Clan Novacat Alpha Galaxy. Laventa24, thanks for the follow, and hopping in the chat. Thanks for dropping the line. Center this off so you folks can actually see what the hell I'm doing. A little bit up on the top edge of this to build up some of that brightness. Along. Now, on one thing that'll get a little bit tedious later on is on the dropship. We had the luxury of being able to use the toothbrush to kind of put white paint onto and flick all the white star speckles all over the dropship, but obviously we don't want to get stars all over kind of these black areas, black and dark gray areas, so we'll have to manually go on and just kind of tap 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 with white ink or paint, but that won't be too bad. and that'll be a later on thing. I'm gonna kind of hit some of these edges up here. It's almost good. Tops of these missile pods a little bit more, and I think just the tops of these little edges down here on either side of the torso a little bit more. For miniature that had mold slips and stuff on it, this isn't looking half bad. Halfway done. 5 more mechs to go. Just see this is my little sponge thing. Needs the next here. Oops. When I was little, Top Gun was still at Miramar, and they were my heroes. When I got older, it was a Marine base, and I was the same age as them. They seemed kind of crazy and aggro. Then I moved to Arizona and made friends with a bunch of guys in the Air Force. Really just take all kinds. Oh yeah, and even within branches, like you'll find all, like even within infantry as a combat arms trade, you'll find from unit to unit, different units have a different culture. So it really depends where you are, who your chain of command is, who are the guys that you're working with. Yeah, it's just like any place of employment, I guess. Some Canadian, some Costco's are probably great to work at, some probably suck. Go ahead and restock my Temple Guard blue paint on my wet palette. About a half hour left here. We'll definitely finish this application. That would be nice. We can close out the show with that, and then next episode of this particular little series on the Alpha Galaxy, which will continue on Thursday, we'll carry on with some more detail work. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll just do a 2-hour stream tomorrow and just crack on. Social media is always good for last-minute updates, so stay tuned for that. Definitely. Trailblazer5712, thanks for the follow. Definitely should have indulged on Amazon Prime Day. I've been thinking about getting a couple not too expensive webcams, so I can have one facing my ugly mug on my painting desk as well as one at my PC. That way when I'm chatting, you're not just staring at an image slideshow the whole time. So if you want to help contribute to me getting a webcam, if you're so inclined, head on over to my Patreon. It is linked in the stream description, and if you're watching this on YouTube, it is linked in the video description. Thanks for subbing. Damn, thanks a lot, man. Or thanks a lot, lady. I don't want to discriminate. I don't know what your preferred term is. I think that's probably good for the horned owl. We're going to kind of focus on the head of this piranha. I kind of want to build up some of the brightness and make this the focal point, because a little bit on the abs too. I kind of want to make the abs a focal point too. I'm going to edge highlight the hell out of the abs and make them super shiny. Because this little guy works hard, you know what I'm saying? And like all these pipes on the back, it's like he's got, I don't know, if it was a fat mech, I would say it was fat rolls, but I'm just going to say he's got rippling lats. Been doing some bent over rows pull-ups, weighted pull-ups. You know what I'm saying? Are these mechs to go with the Starfield dropship? 100p. The dropship's mostly just for, you know, I don't like display and, you know, using as terrain and scenery on a table if I'm playing a game. But the Clan Novacat mechs I want to use for kind of campaign stuff. I have some Novacat Sigma Galaxy stuff painted. So I have, you know, after this I'll have essentially 4 stars worth of Clan Novacat mechs, and then along with a couple vehicles and some battle armor. So it gives me a decent campaign force, and then I have a ton of Eridani Light Horse stuff that I just finished painting up for campaign force, and a bunch of already existing Eridani Light Horse stuff in my collection. So, yeah, it'll make for some pretty fun campaign shenanigans. All right, we're blowing through these guys pretty quickly here. Already on to the Conjurer. The only mech to do after this guy is the Vapor Eagle. As I did on the last layer, I'm really going to focus a lot around this cockpit canopy framing, just because I want to really make that nice and bold. I will reinforce a lot of that framing with actual just like detail brushwork. I'm probably going to repaint the antennas as well. Like these long parts I'll probably paint black and then do a couple white stripes on them. Kind of how I do with a lot of my other longer antennas. I just think it'll be kind of a fun little detail on this. It'll make them really pop in that sea of blue and all that stuff. Whereas I think right now, if they stay this color, they won't look as noticeable. I don't know. We'll see. But I think I'm going to do the black with the white striping. Definitely be painting some of the stuff on the missile launchers here in metallics. But I'll still kind of build some of this up. It'll definitely be fun once we get some decals on here as well. That always makes things look really sharp. Good, good, good. One left to go. Goshawk, Vapor Eagle. Pardon me. It's up a little bit lighter on the face, just to try to keep this a little bit smooth. A little bit more smooth than the previous layer, rather. I'm just kind of focusing on these areas that are already very bright on the torso and the head. I'm going to focus on some of these raised edges back here, but I want to focus on those other areas. good. Shoulders here. I'm trying to get on this little edge there that's not really touched up, but that's okay. I'm going to go in and stipple and do a little bit of work with my detail brush later on. That's totally fine. I don't need to worry about that with this thing because I don't want to start banging up the side there. I do have a bit of touch up to do on the horn dowel. I've got a little bit on the shoulder pad, a little bit of blue. It's dark blue, thankfully, so it kind of blends in with the gray. But yeah, and then a little bit on that edge. I'll just tidy those up later on. Totally not bad at all. And this was quick and easy. Like, I mean, this is 10 miniatures, right? Like, we're not like a couple. We're going through 10 miniatures. And this is the level that we've got them to so far. So I'll clear these out of the way. I'm also going to cap off my wet palette for now because I don't need access to it for the time being. I am going to leave this just slightly open. I always do this with my wet palette just to allow a little bit of airflow. Got my little applicator, pop that out, boom. This guy's just going to go back in here. Everything has a home, folks. If you're one of those people that struggles to keep your hobby desk neat and tidy, just do this. Actively put things away as you're doing it. Clutter's very easy to mount up, but there is a way. Develop strategies. Anyways, I digress. So this is the caliber of stuff we're working with here. Get these all lined up. Line them up. We'll go ahead and zoom in on these guys here. Coming along well. I like this technique. It would work for my Ghost Bear Mechs. I'm gonna do, what galaxy are you working on with the Ghost Bears? Just getting into painting many, so stopping by your stream was excellent, extremely helpful. Awesome, Trailblazer, happy to hear. Yeah, I try to stream regularly now. I head over to my YouTube as well. I have all my stream recordings up there except for one I still need to put up there from about a month ago. But pretty much everything is up there. I also have a good comprehensive tutorial from a few years ago, 2022 or 2023, of me painting the mechs from the opening of MechWarrior 4 Vengeance. It's like a 30-minute video. I cover a ton of techniques. It's very comprehensive, in-depth. Go check that out. Yeah, it's been a productive evening. I wouldn't mind doing some more comprehensive tutorials. I just doing, like, the editing process is such a long one. It took me probably 10 hours to edit that one 30-minute video, so yeah. But yeah, definitely happy to help newcomers because I'm 100% self-taught. I learned everything off of like YouTube and just posting stuff in Facebook groups and miniature painting forums and just talking with other people and getting ideas, looking at what they did, trying things out. So Frankie Fingers 77, Delta Galaxy, blue to gray fade. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you could totally use this for that. I would actually, so if you don't have some, so like the other sponges I'm using, don't get me wrong, they work for this application, but these makeup sponges, these super soft makeup application sponges, get your hands on some of these. They're super soft, very smooth, and they have paint go on so smoothly. So I actually use these to do area highlights on the dropship that I painted on the last several streams. Very, very smooth. There's lots of videos on Instagram, and I imagine TikTok. I don't have TikTok, but I see reels all the time of guys doing what almost looks like airbrush volume highlighting, but they're doing it with these sponges, and they're just thinning their paints down and then using this tip to just dab their stuff on in gradients. very, very cool stuff. Definitely get yourself some of these. I got a pack of 6 for like $12, something like that on Amazon. I know people hate Jeff Bezos, but goddamn, his company works really efficiently. So yeah, they got my money. YouTube University, baby, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's I don't know, like I know it doesn't work for everybody because some people just they do better with hands-on instruction, and I definitely benefit from that as well. But I've gotten pretty good at problem solving, so I definitely enjoy just kind of looking at a photo and maybe seeing a couple work, slides of like a workflow. Like Elementarista is really good for that. He'll have like several photos in a row, and you can kind of see the steps that he's done if you've been painting for a little while, and you can kind of piece things together. So I like doing that and trying things out. I'll hop off the painting desk. We'll go back over to the other desk. We'll chit chat some more and then close out the show.
All right. So, Trailblazer, if you're still in the chat, what are you painting miniature-wise? Are you just into BattleTech? Are you doing Warhammer? What are you into? Definitely curious to know, others in the chat, what other games are you into other than BattleTech? BattleTech exclusively, eh? Do you do Alpha Strike or Classic, or have you actually played a game yet? You're still kind of dabbling. Still dabbling, just started diving into it a month or so ago. Nice. I don't know how much lore you have consumed, but I think everybody can agree that the Black Pants Legion, Tex Talks BattleTech, one of the most top tier ways to get into the lore, really sink your teeth into it. Another one is Sven Vanderplank. I'll actually drop these into the chat text-wise so you can copy and paste them. Because great resources. Yeah, Sven Vanderplank does much more comprehensive videos. Texts are a little bit more entertaining, just in terms of like, he's got a good sense of humor and other things he adds in, little skits and stuff. But Sven, man, unreal videos. Both of them are fantastic, but I really like Sven's because he does really comprehensive like timeline videos. Really, really cool stuff. And he's done some all through like the Terran Alliance, through the start of the Terran hegemony, to Age of War, to Birth of the Star League, through Ameri's Civil War, through the start of the, all through the Succession Wars essentially now. So pretty good stuff. Haven't actually played BattleTech since it was FAFSA and Raul Parthenides from Frankie Fingers. Damn, long time ago. I actually just wrapped up Cataphract for MacFraud's next vid. Nice. Getting into an indie game, binging otherwise, a little game from Blaster Mag called Arsenal, and a few random things here and there, painting wise. Nice. I've been diving back into MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries a little bit lately. Trailblazer, learning the rules, joining discords, watching videos, grew up playing MechWarrior games. Same. That was my all my initial exposure to it, and then eventually the MechWarrior Dark Age Eclipse game. I definitely have been listening to those channels as of late. Was huge into the lore before diving into the tabletop side. Cool. I was completely the opposite. Like I just played the video games. The only lore I really dabbled in was a bit of the FedCom Civil War stuff because I was pretty heavy into MechWarrior 4 and the expansions and Mercenaries. But Yeah, I didn't really care much about the lore until like 2020. It's kind of when I got back into the whole miniature side of things. Can confirm Tex and Sven for lore. Yeah, 100%. Tex is personal favorite. Sven does like 2.5 hour breakdowns, both very comprehensive, 100%. Yeah, they both have their pros and cons. I'm a big fan of Tex's from Exodus to Elementals. I also like his Amara Civil War 2-part 1 as well. That was the inspiration for my the diorama I did with Augustin, also known as God and Davion, for the Last Stand of the Royal Black Watch. That's on camelspecs.com, as well as my Instagram feed if you go far enough back. Yeah, like the archer getting gunned down by the Highlander and all that stuff. Pay your phone bill. MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries is one of my all-time favorite games. Yeah, same here. Like the whole MechWarrior 4 franchise was beautiful. It's not the most MechWarrior of Mech Warriors, and like some parts of it are a little bit arcadey, but like, man, overall gameplay experience top tier, like compared to all the rest, in my opinion. But yeah. I'm actually probably going to be hopping on playing a little bit of video games before I go to bed here. So, probably going to tidy up my painting desk and put these miniatures in my cabinet so my cats don't destroy them and treat them like toys. Or my dog doesn't get a hold of one and eat it. And yeah, I'm probably going to hop on and either do some MechWarrior online, or, I don't know, maybe some MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. I also have another game I play, old RTS game, kind of a 4X strategy game called Sins of the Solar Empire. Definitely a very cool game. They just came out with a sequel to it recently, but I really enjoyed the OG first one. Very fun. Conquering planets and stars. But yeah. I think I'm going to hop off for the evening here, folks. It's 11:20. Been going for almost 4 hours. A little bit of a hiccup at the start there with my app turning off my camera function for some reason, but we sorted it out. I really appreciate you folks hanging out with me this evening. We actually had a decent amount of viewers, which is pretty nice. So thanks for hanging out and listening to me ramble. I hope you enjoyed. I'm 100% going to be streaming on Thursday at 7:30 as well as Saturday at 7:30. I'm also probably going to do a couple short impromptu streams just working on other small projects I have going on. That'll be potentially tomorrow and the next day. We'll see. If I do have those, I'll probably be starting at like 8:30, going for like maybe 2 hours. Just short ones. But we'll see what tomorrow brings and the next day. If not, I will see you folks on Thursday. Hope you have a wonderful evening. My name is Zach. You've been watching Real-Time Painting with Arclight Miniatures. I hope you folks have a fantastic evening and rest of the week. I will see you folks for sure on Thursday. Good night.